I saw my son's car and decided to surprise him for his birthday by hiding in the back seat with his gift. But when he got in with someone else, I heard a voice say, "Your pathetic mother won't be a problem much longer." I froze. Then I looked up and couldn't believe who was sitting next to him. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're tuning in from. My name is Evelyn Carter, but everyone calls me Dot. I'm 63 and I thought I'd seen enough betrayal in one lifetime. I was wrong. It was March 15th, Andrew Carter's 35th birthday. I had his favorite chocolate cake from Myers's Bakery sitting in my lap. I'd been waiting in his Honda for 20 minutes, grinning like a schoolgirl at my own cleverness. This surprise birthday visit was going to be perfect. Then I heard footsteps. My heart skipped. I ducked lower behind the driver's seat, barely containing my excitement. The car door opened and Andrew Carter slid into the driver's seat. But instead of starting the engine, he just sat there. Another door opened. "Are you sure about this?" a woman's voice asked as she settled into the passenger seat. I nearly gasped out loud. It was Melissa Grant, his business partner. The same Melissa I'd helped him hire 2 years ago when I lent him $30,000 to expand his marketing firm. "Positive?" Andrew Carter replied. His voice cold, a tone I'd never heard from him before. "The old bat signed everything over to me after Dad died. Power of attorney, beneficiary changes, the works. She was so grateful for my help with the paperwork." My blood ran cold. "What paperwork? What changes? And the house?" Melissa asked. Andrew Carter chuckled, a sound that made my skin crawl. "Already in my name. She doesn't even know. I told her it was just updating the deed for tax purposes after Dad's death." The cake box trembled in my hands. "My house? The house George Carter and I built together 41 years ago? Your pathetic mother won't be a problem much longer," Melissa said, her voice dripping with contempt. "Once we're married, we'll put her in Sunset Manor. She'll be grateful for the company." Married? My son was engaged, and I had to find out like this? "The nursing home costs will eat up whatever's left of her savings pretty quickly," Andrew Carter said, matter of fact. "But that's not our problem anymore." I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from screaming. This was my son, my baby boy who used to crawl into bed with me during thunderstorms, the child I'd sacrificed everything for after his father died 3 years ago. What if she figures it out? Melissa asked. "She won't," Andrew Carter replied. "Mom trusts me completely. Always has. Makes this almost too easy." The engine started, and as they drove off to celebrate his birthday, I sat in stunned silence in the back seat, holding a cake for a son who was planning to throw me away like garbage. But Andrew Carter had made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated his pathetic old mother. The 20-minute ride to whatever restaurant they'd chosen felt like an eternity. I stayed hidden, my mind racing, trying to process what I'd just heard. When the car finally stopped, I waited until they'd walked away before slipping out and calling a taxi. Back home, I sat in my kitchen staring at the birthday cake. The same kitchen where I'd taught Andrew Carter to crack eggs without getting shells everywhere. Where I'd helped him with homework every night through high school. Where I'd cried with him when his father passed. How had I missed the signs? How had my devoted son become this stranger? The tellin' was I hadn't missed them. I'd chosen to ignore them. It started right after George Carter's funeral. Andrew Carter had been so helpful, so attentive. "Mom, let me handle the paperwork," he'd said. "You're grieving. You shouldn't have to deal with this financial stuff." I'd been grateful, overwhelmed by loss and drowning in insurance forms, bank documents, and legal papers I didn't understand. When Andrew Carter offered to help, I'd signed whatever he put in front of me. Just a formality. "Mom, this gives me permission to handle things if you're ever unable to." That's how he'd explained the power of attorney. "Document. We need to update the house deed for tax purposes now that Dad's gone." That's how he'd described transferring my home into his name. I'd trusted him completely. My brilliant, successful son who ran his own marketing company. Why wouldn't I trust him? The signs had been there, though. How he'd stopped visiting unless he needed something. How he became evasive when I asked about his personal life. The day I mentioned wanting to update my will, and he quickly changed the subject. And Vanessa. I should have seen through her fake sweetness from the beginning. The way she'd charm me when she needed something, then barely acknowledge my existence otherwise. I'd even helped pay for her marketing certification courses. My phone rang, jolting me from my thoughts. Andrew Carter's name appeared on the screen. "Hi, honey," I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hey, Mom. Sorry I missed your call earlier. Melissa and I were at dinner celebrating my birthday." The casual lie rolled off his tongue so easily. "Oh, that's nice, dear. How was it?" "Great. Listen, I wanted to talk to you about something. Can I come over tomorrow? There are some financial things we need to discuss." My stomach dropped. "What kind of financial things?" "Just some updates to your accounts. Nothing major, but it's important we handle it soon." "I'll bet it is," I thought. "Of course, honey. Whatever you think is best. Perfect. I'll be there around 10. And Mom, don't worry about anything, okay? I'm taking care of everything." After he hung up, I sat in the growing darkness of my kitchen, George Carter's picture on the mantel watching over me. My husband had always been the suspicious one, the one who questioned people's motives. I'd been the trusting one, seeing the best in everyone. "Well, George Carter," I whispered to his photo, "looks like you were right to worry about people taking advantage of me." But George Carter had also taught me something else. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Andrew Carter had just shown me exactly who he'd become. Now it was time to figure out what I was going to do about it. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Vanessa's voice. "Your pathetic mother won't be a problem much longer." By 6 a.m., I was dressed and ready. If Andrew Carter thought I was just some helpless old woman, he was about to learn otherwise. I might be 63, but I wasn't dead yet. My first stop was Myers's Bakery. Carolyn Myers had been my friend for 20 years, ever since her daughter was in my 3rd grade class. "Dot," she exclaimed when I walked in. "Don't tell me Andrew Carter didn't like his chocolate cake. I made it extra special." "Actually, Carolyn, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest." I leaned across the counter. "Has Andrew Carter ever been in here with a young woman?" Blonde, early 30s, very polished. Carolyn's expression shifted. "Well, yes. Several times this past year. They seem quite close. Close how?" She glanced around the empty bakery, then lowered her voice. "Dot, they were holding hands, kissing. Last month they came in looking at wedding cakes." "Wedding cakes." The words hit me like a punch, but I kept my face neutral. "Did he introduce her as his fiancée?" "I thought it was odd you hadn't mentioned it, but I figured maybe it was a surprise or something." "A surprise." That was one way to put it. "Carolyn, I need you to promise me you won't mention this conversation to anyone. Can you do that?" She nodded, concern creasing her face. "Dot, is everything okay?" "It will be," I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. My next stop was First National Bank, where I'd done business for 35 years. Sharon Green, the branch manager, greeted me warmly. "Mrs. Carter, how can I help you today?" "Sharon, I need to review all my accounts, every single one, and I need to know exactly who has access to them." Her smile faltered slightly. "Is there a problem?" "I hope not. But I need to be sure." What Sharon showed me made my blood run cold. Andrew Carter wasn't just on my accounts as a co-signer. According to the paperwork I'd apparently signed, he was listed as the primary account holder. I was now the secondary party on my own bank accounts. "When did this change happen?" I asked, staring at documents bearing my signature, signatures I didn't remember writing. Let me check. "About 18 months ago. You and Andrew Carter came in together. You seemed a bit confused about the process, so Andrew Carter explained everything." Confused. That's what they'd call it when they finally put me in a nursing home, too. Poor old Dot, so confused about her finances. "Sharon, I need copies of everything. Every document. Every signature card. Every change to these accounts in the last 3 years." "Of course, Mrs. Carter. Is there something specific you're worried about?" I thought about my conversation with Andrew Carter. His casual mention of financial things we need to discuss, about wedding cakes and nursing homes, and how inconvenient mothers eventually stopped being problems. Let's just say I'm suddenly very interested in my financial situation. As Sharon printed the documents, I realized something that should have scared me but didn't. I was completely at Andrew Carter's mercy. He controlled my money, my house, probably my entire future. But Andrew Carter had made one crucial mistake. He'd assumed I'd stay ignorant forever. Game on, sweetheart. The documents Sharon gave me painted a horrifying picture. Over the past 18 months, Andrew Carter had systematically stripped me of control over my life. My savings, my checking, even my CD investments, all transferred to his primary control. But what truly made my hands shake was the insurance paperwork. George Carter's life insurance policy, the one meant to provide for me for the rest of my life, had been changed. Andrew Carter was now the sole beneficiary. I sat in my car in the bank parking lot, studying page after page of my own signature. Some I remembered signing. Most I didn't, but they all looked legitimate. My phone buzzed with a text from Andrew Carter. "Running a few minutes late, Mom. See you at 10:30 instead." Perfect. That gave me extra time to prepare for our little financial discussion. At home, I spread all the documents across my dining room table, the same table where we'd celebrated birthdays and holidays, where Andrew Carter once did his homework while I graded papers, where George Carter and I had planned our retirement. I called my old friend Helen Foster. If anyone could help me handle this, it was Helen. She'd been through her own family drama when her stepson tried to contest her husband's will. "Dot, you sound strange. What's wrong?" I told her everything. The overheard conversation, the bank documents, the power of attorney I didn't remember giving Andrew Carter. "Oh, honey," Helen breathed when I finished. "This is elder financial abuse. It's more common than people realize. And sadly, it's usually family. What can I do? First, you need a lawyer, someone who specializes in elder law. Second, document everything. And third, be very careful. If Andrew Carter realizes you're onto him, he might accelerate his timeline. Accelerate how? The nursing home. Once you're declared incompetent or moved to a care facility, it becomes much harder to challenge these arrangements." After Helen gave me the name of an attorney, I sat staring at Andrew Carter's senior picture on my mantel. Honor roll student, Eagle Scout, business degree from State University, paid for by George Carter and me. When had my ambitious, high-achieving son become this calculating stranger? The doorbell rang at exactly 10:30. I quickly gathered the papers and locked them in George Carter's old filing cabinet, then went to answer the door. "Hi, Mom." Andrew Carter leaned down to kiss my cheek, and I had to force myself not to flinch. He looked handsome and successful in his navy suit, briefcase in hand, like he was about to conduct a business meeting. Which I supposed he was. "Coffee, honey?" I asked, leading him to the living room. "Sure." "Thanks." He settled into George Carter's old chair and opened his briefcase. "So, I wanted to talk to you about some changes we need to make to your financial setup." "Oh?" I sat across from him, hands folded in my lap, the picture of an agreeable elderly mother. "Your accounts are getting complicated. I think it would be simpler if we consolidated everything into one account that I handle completely. That way, you don't have to worry about balancing checkbooks or keeping track of multiple statements. Don't have to worry." "How considerate of him." "And there's something else," he continued. "Melissa and I are getting married." I arranged my face into an expression of surprised delight. "Andrew Carter, how wonderful." "When?" "Next month. Small ceremony. Just immediate family." Immediate family. I wondered if that included me, or if I'd already been written off as too pathetic to matter. "We've been looking at houses," he went on. "We found the perfect place, but we'll need to free up some capital for the down payment." Here it comes, I thought. I was thinking we could sell this place. It's way too big for you now, and the maintenance costs are expensive. There's a lovely senior community across town, much more appropriate for someone your age, someone my age. Not a nursing home yet, but close. "I don't know, honey," I said carefully. "This house has so many memories." Andrew Carter's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "Mom, you need to be practical. You can't live here forever. What happens when you can't manage the stairs? When you need help with daily activities? I feel fine now, for now. But we need to plan for the future. Trust me, I know what's best. The arrogance in those 4 words took my breath away. I know what's best. Not what's best for me. What's best for him? Well, I said slowly. I suppose I should think about it. Something flickered across his face. Impatience. Frustration. There's not much to think about, Mom. The housing market's good right now. If we wait too long, we might miss our opportunity. Our opportunity. As if selling my home was a joint venture. Let me consider it for a few days, I said. Andrew Carter's jaw tightened. A few days might be too long. The house Melissa and I wanted to buy wouldn't stay on the market forever. And there it was, the real timeline. Not my comfort, not my needs, but Andrew Carter and Vanessa's house hunting schedule. I understand. Honey, I said quietly, but this is a big decision. He snapped his briefcase shut. The sound sharp in the quiet room. Fine, but don't wait too long. Mom, sometimes opportunities don't come around twice. As I walked him to the door, I realized he was right about one thing. Opportunities don't come around twice, and he'd just handed me mine. After Andrew Carter left, I sat in George Carter's chair and called the attorney Helen had recommended. Laura Mitchell specialized in elder law and had handled dozens of cases like mine. Mrs. Carter, based on what you're telling me, we need to act quickly. Can you come in this afternoon? 2 hours later, I sat in Laura's office, watching her review the bank documents with growing concern. This is sophisticated, she said finally. Your son didn't just take advantage of your grief. He planned this carefully over months. Is there anything I can do? I asked, possibly. But first, I need to ask you some difficult questions. Do you remember signing these power of attorney documents? I closed my eyes, thinking back to those dark months after George Carter's death. Some of them. Andrew Carter said I needed to sign papers so he could help manage things while I was grieving. But I don't remember giving him full control. That's the problem with these situations, she said gently. People often strike when their loved ones are most vulnerable. You were coping with tremendous loss, and Andrew Carter exploited that. The word exploited made me flinch. We were talking about my son. What are my options? We can challenge the power of attorney, argue that you weren't fully competent to sign due to grief and emotional distress. We can also file for elder abuse, financial and emotional. But you need to understand something important. What's that? Once we start, your relationship with Andrew Carter will be permanently changed. Cases like this often tear families apart. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the conversation I'd overheard in the car, Melissa calling me pathetic, Andrew Carter planning to put me in a nursing home, how I wasn't supposed to be a problem much longer. Laura, I said softly. What relationship? He's already decided I don't matter. Then let's make sure you matter very much, she said firmly. Laura explained the process. We'd need evidence, proof of his financial manipulation, and documentation showing I was capable of managing my own affairs. It would take weeks, maybe months. The most important thing right now is that Andrew Carter doesn't know you're onto him, she warned. Can you pretend everything is normal while we build your case? Could I? Could I smile and play the trusting, naive mother while secretly gathering proof of my son's betrayal? Mrs. Carter, are you all right? I looked up at Laura, this stranger offering to help me fight for my life, and made a decision that would change everything. Yes, I said. I can do that. But I need to ask you something first. Is it legal to record conversations in this state? Laura smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. Why do you ask? Because Andrew Carter wants another financial discussion with me next week. And I think it would be helpful to have a record of exactly what he's planning to do to his pathetic old mother. Mrs. Carter, Laura said quietly, I think you're going to do just fine. As I drove home, I passed Sunset Manor, the nursing home Andrew Carter had mentioned. I'd driven by it hundreds of times without really looking. Now I studied the small windows, the residents sitting on the porch in wheelchairs. Was that where Andrew Carter pictured me spending my final years, warehoused with strangers while he and Melissa lived in my house and spent my savings? Not if I had anything to say about it, but first, I needed a conversation with Vanessa. It was time to meet my future daughter-in-law properly. Finding her address was easier than I expected. Andrew Carter's marketing company website listed both partners, complete with headshots and contact information. Melissa Grant lived in a trendy downtown loft, the kind of place that cost more per month than I used to earn in 6 months of teaching. I parked across the street and waited. Laura had advised me to document everything to build a full picture of Andrew Carter and Vanessa's finances. If they were planning to take my money, I wanted to see exactly how they were spending it. At 11:30 a.m., Melissa emerged in a designer workout outfit that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. She climbed into a brand-new BMW convertible and headed toward the upscale part of town. I followed her to the Prestige Fitness Center, where monthly memberships started at $300. She spent 2 hours there, then met a friend for lunch at Romano's, easily the city's most expensive restaurant. As I watched her laugh and order wine at noon on a Tuesday, I wondered where the money was coming from. Andrew Carter's marketing firm was successful, but not luxury car and fine dining successful. Not unless he had another source of income, like, for instance, access to his mother's life savings. That afternoon, I drove by the house Andrew Carter and Melissa were supposedly trying to buy. The real estate sign was still up, and I copied down the agent's number. A quick call revealed that yes, they were interested buyers, but there had been delays with financing. They're waiting on some family money to come through, the agent confided. Should be resolved within the next few weeks. Family money? My money. That evening, Andrew Carter called, his voice warm, worried. How are you feeling about our conversation yesterday, Mom? I've been thinking about what you said about selling the house. I breathed and played my part. You're right, honey. This place is too big for me. Maybe it is time to downsize. Relief bloomed through the phone. I'm so glad you're being reasonable about this. I was worried you might be stubborn. Stubborn like wanting to keep your own house. The word landed like an accusation wrapped in concern. When would you want to list it? Soon, I said. I'll call a realtor tomorrow. We'll price it competitively for a quick sale. A quick sale, of course. No time to change my mind. No time to think. And Mom, he added, I've been looking into that senior community I mentioned, Sunshine Gardens. They have a lovely one-bedroom available. I could take you to see it this weekend. Sunshine Gardens. After our talk yesterday, I'd looked it up online. Expensive, isolated, raked by terrible reviews, complaints about poor food, indifferent staff, and residents who felt abandoned by their families. That sounds nice, dear. Perfect, I said. And one more thing. When I come Friday, I'll need you to sign some papers just to get the house sale started. More papers. More of my life to sign away? Of course, honey. Whatever you think is best. After he hung up, I sat at the kitchen table and made a list. Every lie Andrew Carter had told. Every manipulation. Every document I'd signed without really understanding. Every dollar he'd moved out of my hands. By the time I finished the list, covered 3 pages. George Carter's photo watched me from the mantel. I could almost hear his voice. Dot. That boy is not the son we raised. He was right. The son we raised would never have stolen from his mother, would never plan to abandon her in a substandard home, would never call her pathetic behind her back. But Andrew Carter had made one critical mistake. He assumed I would remain the trusting, grieving widow who signed whatever he put in front of her. Friday couldn't come soon enough. I wanted our conversation about those papers. Almost as much as I wanted the conversation he had no idea was coming. Friday arrived with an unseasonable March warmth. I'd been awake since 5, checking the tiny recorder Laura had given me over and over. Smaller than my thumb, invisible tucked in my cardigan pocket. Just press this button to start, she'd said. 4 hours of battery. Excellent sound. At exactly 10, Andrew Carter arrived, briefcase in hand and his most charming smile in place. Morning, Mom. Beautiful day, isn't it? Lovely, I answered, leading him to the dining room. Coffee, please. He settled into his usual chair and opened his briefcase with practiced ease. I brought those papers I mentioned. I pressed the recorder as I poured his coffee. What kind of papers? I asked. Just some updates to your financial arrangements and the paperwork to list the house? He spread a stack across the table. Sign here, here, and here. I picked up the first document and pretended to read it closely. It was a revision to the power of attorney that would hand Andrew Carter even more control over my affairs. This seems very comprehensive, I said. It needs to be, he replied. Then his voice shifted. Mom, I have to be honest. I'm concerned about your memory. You've seemed confused lately about financial matters. Confused. That word again. Have I? I asked. When I called yesterday, you didn't remember our conversation about the realtor. And last week, you asked me the same question 3 times. His tone slid toward pity. I hadn't done any of those things, but I could see where he was trying to take this. Oh dear. I hadn't noticed. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It happens to people our age. That's why we need to get these legal protections in place now, while you're still competent to sign. While I'm still competent. The implication hung in the air. Soon I wouldn't be. Andrew Carter, can I ask you something? I said, of course. Are you stealing from me? The question hung there like smoke. Andrew Carter's face cycled through expressions before settling into wounded incredulity. Mom, how can you ask that after everything I've done for you? I went to the bank yesterday. Sharon showed me my accounts. You've moved all my money into accounts where I'm not the primary holder. I watched his jaw tighten. I explained this already. It's for your protection, he said. Protection from what? From yourself. The mask slipped, and something harder showed through. Mom, you're not thinking clearly. Last month you nearly got scammed by that phone call about your car warranty. If I hadn't been managing your finances, you could have lost everything. I had never received any such phone call, but Andrew Carter's lie slid out so smoothly I almost admired the craftsmanship. And Melissa, what about her? Are you two engaged? A flicker of surprise crossed his face. We've discussed it, he said. Why? I just find it curious that you're getting married, buying a house and arranging to put me in a nursing home all at once. Convenient timing. Andrew Carter set his coffee down with exaggerated care. Mom, no one is putting you anywhere, he said. We're finding you a nice place where you'll be safe and looked after. Sunset Manor. Lovely facility, very well regarded. I had called Sunset Manor yesterday. They had a waiting list, but Andrew Carter had put down a deposit for a semi-private room. Move-in date, April 1st, 2 weeks away. When did you put down the deposit, Andrew Carter? His face froze. What deposit, he asked. The deposit at Sunset Manor. For April 1st. Silence widened between us like a canyon. When he finally spoke, his voice had gone flat, colder than before. How did you find out about that? Does it matter? He snapped. He leaned forward, and for the first time in my life I felt afraid of my own son. Mom, you're making this much harder than it needs to be, he said. Making what harder? I asked, the transition. You can't live here anymore. You can't manage your affairs. The sooner you accept that, the easier it will be for everyone. Everyone, he meant you and Vanessa. Andrew Carter stood abruptly. Melissa has nothing to do with this, he said. Really? I said. Because I followed her yesterday. Nice BMW, by the way. Expensive gym membership, too. Where's the money coming from, Andrew Carter? The question landed. Heat flushed his face. You followed her, Mom? That's stalking. That's exactly the kind of behavior that proves you need supervised care, he said. I need supervised care because I discovered my son is stealing from me, I retorted. I'm not stealing anything, he shot back, slamming his hand on the table. The sound made me jump. This money was always going to be mine eventually, he said. I'm just managing it more efficiently. There, the felon, finally exposed. Efficiently, I repeated. Yes. Do you have any idea what it costs to take care of an elderly parent? The nursing home fees alone will eat through your savings in 3 years. This way, we preserve the family wealth while ensuring you get the care you need. Family wealth. My life savings recast as family wealth that needed preserving. Andrew Carter sank back into his chair, and in that dangerously reasonable tone he used when he wanted me to believe him, said, Mom, sign the papers. Let me handle everything. You won't have to worry about money or maintenance anymore. I looked at him, a stranger in my son's face, and felt something inside me break. Not my heart. That had cracked before, the day he called me pathetic in his car. This was different. This was the final severing of the cord that had tied us since the day he was born. No, I said quietly. No. What? He demanded. No, I won't sign the papers. No, I won't sell my house. And no, I won't go quietly into that nursing home so you and Melissa can live off my money. Andrew Carter's mask slipped. You don't have a choice, Mom, he said. I already have power of attorney. I can have you declared incompetent, can you? I asked. Yes. And after your behavior today, stalking Vanessa, making paranoid accusations, I think that's exactly what I'll have to do. I smiled then, probably for the first real time since this nightmare began. Andrew Carter. Honey, there's something you should know, I said. What's that? He asked. I reached into my cardigan and pulled out the little recorder, still blinking red. I've been recording our entire conversation. Color left his face. You can't do that, he stammered. Actually, I can, I said. Single-party consent state, remember? You taught me that in business law. Andrew Carter stared at the device like it had teeth. Mom, delete that recording right now. I don't think so, I said. If you don't delete it, I'll have you declared incompetent tomorrow. Go ahead, try it. I'll be very interested to hear how a judge reacts when they hear you admit to stealing my money for efficiency purposes. We stared at each other across the dining room table. 35. Years of motherhood dissolving into a single, bitter moment of antagonism. Finally, Andrew Carter gathered his papers and rose. This isn't over, he said. No, I agreed, still smiling. It's just getting started. After he left, I sat at my kitchen table trembling, but not from fear this time. I was shaking with adrenaline. I'd stood up to him. I'd fought back, and it felt incredible. I called Laura immediately. Mrs. Carter, how did it go? She asked. I got everything, I said. He admitted to stealing my money, to planning to put me in a nursing home, to already having power of attorney he plans to abuse. It's all on tape. Excellent, she said. Can you come in Monday morning? We need to move quickly now that he knows you're aware of his plans. After I hung up, I realized Andrew Carter had been right about one thing. This was just getting started. If he was prepared to threaten incompetency proceedings, he wouldn't hesitate to escalate. I needed allies, and fast. My first call was to Helen Foster. Helen, I need your help and it might get complicated, I said. Anything, Dot, what do you need? She answered. I need witnesses. People who can testify I'm mentally competent and can manage my own affairs. Consider it done, she said. I'll call Margaret Thompson and Anne Bradley. We've all been friends for 30 years. Anyone who claims you're incompetent will have to get past us first. My second call was harder. I phoned my sister Sharon in Phoenix, the sister I hadn't spoken to in 2 years over a silly spat about Dad's china. Dot, is that really you? She asked. Hi, Sharon. I know it's been a while, but I need to tell you something important. I told her everything. The theft, the nursing home deposit, the recording. By the time I finished, she was crying. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry, she said. I always thought Andrew Carter was too smooth, too charming. But I never imagined this. Sharon, I might need you to come up. If this goes to court, I'll need family support. I'll book a flight tonight, she said. Dot, yes. I'm proud of you for fighting back. Mom and Dad would be proud, too. That evening, while I was making dinner, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Melissa on my porch, perfectly composed in a designer coat. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Vanessa, this is unexpected, I said. Mrs. Carter, we need to talk, she replied. Andrew Carter told me about your conversation today. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I almost laughed. What kind of misunderstanding? May I come in? She asked. It was chilly. Against my better judgment, I let her sit on my sofa like she owned it, which she likely thought she soon would. Mrs. Carter, Andrew Carter is worried about you. We both are, she said. How thoughtful. This paranoia, these accusations, they aren't like you. Has your doctor said anything about early-stage dementia? The audacity of it all stole my breath. Vanessa, I know exactly what you and Andrew Carter are planning. We're not planning anything except what's best for you. Her voice was honey-sweet, but her eyes were calculating. Andrew Carter loves you so much. It breaks his heart to see you struggling like this. Struggling with what exactly? With reality. Mrs. Carter, you followed me yesterday. You think Andrew Carter is stealing from you. You're making recordings of private conversations. These are concerning behaviors. I studied this perfectly put-together young woman who was trying to gaslight me in my own living room. Tell me something, Melissa. How long have you been planning this? Planning what? She said. The theft. The nursing home taking over my life. For a beat, her mask slipped, just enough to reveal something cold beneath the sweetness. Mrs. Carter, I think you need help. I think you need to leave. She stood and smoothed her coat. We're trying to be patient with you, she said, but Andrew Carter has responsibilities. To his business, to our future together, to his family's financial security. His family's financial security. I repeated. You mean my money? I mean the wise. Management of family assets for everyone's benefit, she replied. Everyone. Meaning you and Andrew Carter, she corrected. Herself, everyone meaning the people who matter. The words escaped. Before she could stop them. The people who matter? I echoed. And I don't matter? Vanessa's face registered the mistake the second it left her mouth. That's not what I meant. Yes, it is, I said. That's exactly what you meant. She moved for the door, then paused and turned back. Mrs. Carter, Andrew Carter is going to take care of this situation with or without your cooperation. It would be easier for everyone if you accept help gracefully. Is that a threat? I asked. It's advice from someone who cares about your well-being, she said. After she left, I double-checked all my locks and called Laura's emergency number. They're escalating, I told my sister. Melissa just tried to convince me I have dementia, and she basically threatened me. We need to accelerate our timeline. Can you be in my office first thing Monday morning? I'll be there, Laura said. And Mrs. Carter, don't let them into your house again. If they're desperate enough to threaten you, who knows what they might do next? As I got ready for bed, I realized I wasn't the same woman who'd hidden in Andrew Carter's back seat just 5 days earlier. That woman had been trusting, naive, eager to please. This woman was done being anyone's victim. But I also knew Andrew Carter and Melissa wouldn't give up easily. They'd poured too much time and effort into this to let it fall apart now, which meant I had to be ready for whatever they threw at me next. Monday morning brought unseasonable snow, a slick white blanket across the driveway that made every step treacherous. Perfect weather for the feeling that everything was sliding away. I arrived at Laura's office early, clutching a folder with copies of every document Andrew Carter had ever asked me to sign. My sister Sharon was already in the waiting room. She'd flown in despite the warnings. You look different, Sharon said as we waited. Stronger somehow. I feel different, I told her. Like I'm waking up after a long sleep. Laura's secretary called us in, and we settled in the attorney's comfortable office overlooking downtown. I've reviewed the recording, Laura began, and it's even better than I hoped. Andrew Carter had essentially confessed to financial elder abuse. But there's something else we need to discuss, Laura said, pulling a thick file from the stack. I had my investigator run background checks on both Andrew Carter and Vanessa. What we found is interesting. What kind of interesting? Sharon asked. Andrew Carter's business isn't as successful as he's led you to believe. In fact, it's been operating at a loss for the past 8 months. His partnership with Melissa has been propped up entirely by money he's taken from your accounts. Sharon leaned forward. How much are we talking about over the past 18 months? Nearly $200,000. The number hit like a physical blow. $200,000. George Carter and I had saved that money over 43 years of marriage. Every vacation we didn't take, every restaurant meal we skipped, every little luxury we denied ourselves. There's more, Laura continued. Melissa Grant has an interesting history. She was married previously to an elderly man named Harold Grant. He died 2 years ago under somewhat mysterious circumstances. Mysterious how? I asked. He changed his will 3 weeks before his death, leaving everything to Melissa instead of his children from his first marriage. His family contested it, alleging elder abuse, but Melissa settled out of court. Sharon and I exchanged a look. "She's done this before," I said. "It appears so. And one last thing," Laura added. "The house they want to buy. It's not a dream home for newlyweds. It's an investment property they plan to flip. They've already lined up contractors." I sank back in my chair, trying to take it all in. They steal my money, shove me into a nursing home, flip a house with my savings, and live off the profits. That's the plan. "But Mrs. Carter, we can stop them," Sharon said. "The recording gives us criminal grounds. The financials show clear theft. And with Harold Brooks' suspicious death, we could be looking at something far worse." "What do you mean?" I asked. "I mean, Melissa Grant might be a predator who targets vulnerable seniors. You may not be her first victim." The room fell quiet, except for the sound of snow tapping the windows. I thought of Vanessa's cold stare, her casual threats, the way she tried to convince me I had dementia. "What's our next step?" I asked. "We file charges right away, financial elder abuse, theft, possibly conspiracy. I'll petition the court to freeze any accounts Andrew Carter can access. And we'll get an injunction to stop the nursing home from committing you involuntarily." "But Mrs. Carter," Sharon added, "you need to understand. Once we file, there's no turning back. This will destroy your relationship with Andrew Carter." I looked at Sharon. She squeezed my hand. Then I remembered Andrew Carter's voice in his car, calling me pathetic, treating me like a problem to be fixed. That relationship was already broken. I just hadn't seen it yet. Then let's make sure justice is served. As we left the law office, Sharon hooked her arm through mine. "Dot, are you sure you're ready? Once the charges are filed, Andrew Carter will know you mean business." "I'm counting on it," I said. But as the snow thickened on the drive home, I wondered if I truly was ready. If Laura was right about Melissa being a serial predator, I wasn't only fighting for money and independence. I might be fighting for my life. That evening, as Sharon and I sat in the kitchen mapping our plan, the phone rang. Andrew Carter's name lit the caller ID. "Answer it," Sharon whispered. "Let's see what he has to say." I put the call on speaker. "Hello, Andrew Carter." "Mom." His voice was tight, measured. "We need to talk." "I think we already have," I said. "No, we haven't. I'm coming over. I'd rather you didn't. I'm not asking. I'm coming over and we're going to settle this like adults." Then the line went dead. Sharon and I exchanged a look. "Call Laura," I said. "Tell her Andrew Carter is on his way and he sounds angry." "Should we call the police?" she asked. I thought a moment. Not yet. But if he forces his way in, we will. 20 minutes later, headlights washed across the living room windows. 2 cars sat in the driveway, Andrew Carter and Melissa together. They didn't look like they'd come to apologize. The doorbell rang rapidly, then heavy knocking followed. I peered through the peephole. Andrew Carter and Melissa on the porch, grim and determined. "Mrs. Carter," Andrew Carter called. "Open the door." "We know you're in there." Sharon moved to the window and peeked through the curtains. "There's a third person in their car," she whispered. "A man I don't recognize." My stomach dropped. "Call Laura now." Sharon dialed while I watched. Andrew Carter tried the handle. "Mom!" he shouted, his voice hotter now. "Don't make this harder. We're trying to help you." From the phone, Sharon said into Laura's line, "Mrs. Webb's office. This is an emergency." The pounding on the door grew louder. "I know you can hear me. Mom, open up or I'll call the police and have you brought in for a psychiatric evaluation." My hands trembled. They weren't here to talk. They were here to finish what they'd started. "Laura's on her way," Sharon said, hanging up. "She's bringing the police." Vanessa's voice joined Andrew Carter's, smooth and clinical. "We're concerned for your safety. You're clearly experiencing a mental health crisis." They were shaping the story for any authority who arrived. The confused elderly woman, barricaded, making wild accusations against her loving son. "Open the door." "Or we're coming in," Andrew Carter shouted. I heard a key turn in the lock. Andrew Carter still had one. The front door opened. Suddenly they were inside, uninvited, moving through my house. "Mom!" Andrew Carter called, his voice echoing. Sharon and I pressed against the kitchen wall, trying to stay hidden as their footsteps searched the rooms. "Check upstairs," Melissa ordered. It felt like being treated as a criminal in my own home. Then a new voice spoke, calm and official. "Mrs. Carter, I'm Dr. Martin Hayes. I'm here to evaluate your mental state." A doctor, I thought. They'd brought a doctor to declare me incompetent. "She's paranoid," Andrew Carter announced loudly, clearly for our benefit. "She's accusing us of theft, following people, recording conversations, classic dementia-related paranoia." Dr. Hayes asked if she'd been evaluated recently. Sharon's grip on my arm tightened. Their narrative was being built in real time to justify what came next. Footsteps drew closer to the kitchen. "I found them," Andrew Carter called. I stepped out, Sharon at my side. "Get out of my house!" Andrew Carter put his hands up as if to calm things. "Mom, please, we're here to help." "Get out," I said. The third man came forward, middle-aged, professional, carrying a leather bag. "Mrs. Carter, I'm Dr. Hayes. Your son is concerned about your mental state." "My mental state is fine," I said. "What's not fine is my son stealing my money and trying to put me in a nursing home against my will." Dr. Hayes exchanged a look with Andrew Carter. "Those are serious accusations. Do you have proof?" A small, incredulous laugh almost escaped me. "As a matter of fact, I do." I pulled out the recorder and pressed play. Andrew Carter's voice filled the kitchen. "This money was always going to be mine eventually. I'm just managing it more efficiently." Dr. Hayes's expression shifted. "Mr. Carter, is this your voice?" Andrew Carter reddened. "She's been recording private conversations without consent. That's illegal." "It's not," I said. "This is a single-party consent state." "You taught me that." Melissa stepped forward, honeyed and cold. "See how paranoid she's become? Recording family conversations, inventing accusations." "They're not inventions if they're true," Sharon cut in for the first time, firm. "And I have documents that prove everything she's saying." Dr. Hayes scanned the kitchen, his eyes sweeping over the tension, fear, and unmistakable cracks of a family coming apart. "Perhaps we should all sit down and talk this through calmly," he suggested. "There's nothing to discuss," I said firmly. "These people broke into my home. I want them out. Now." That's when I heard the sirens outside. Andrew Carter's face drained of color. "What did you do?" he demanded. I called my attorney. "And the police?" Car doors slammed in the driveway. Heavy footsteps moved toward the porch. A hard knock rattled the front door. "Police, open up!" Andrew Carter, Vanessa, and Dr. Hayes exchanged frantic looks. Their carefully staged intervention had just turned into a crime scene. "Mrs. Carter," a loud voice called through the door. "This is Officer Rodriguez. We received a call about a break-in." I walked toward the door, Sharon right behind me, leaving Andrew Carter, Vanessa, and their fake doctor frozen in my kitchen like the criminals they were. When I opened the door, I saw Laura standing behind two uniformed officers, her expression grimly satisfied. "Mrs. Carter," Officer Rodriguez said, "are you all right? We received reports of forced entry." I glanced back toward the kitchen, where Andrew Carter was no doubt trying to figure out how to spin this. "Officer," I said, "I'd like to press charges against my son for breaking and entering financial elder abuse and conspiracy to commit fraud." "Mom!" Andrew Carter's voice cracked from the kitchen. "You don't know what you're doing." I smiled for the first time since this nightmare began. "Actually, Andrew Carter, for the first time in 3 years, I know exactly what I'm doing." The look on his face when the officers entered the kitchen made every terrifying moment of the past week worth it. Justice, at last, was about to be served. 6 months later, I stood in my garden as the sunrise painted the sky in pink and gold, the same garden Andrew Carter had planned to sell along with my house. The same house where I still lived, still independent, still free. The legal battle had moved quickly once the evidence surfaced. Andrew Carter pled guilty to financial elder abuse in exchange for a lighter sentence, 2 years probation, full restitution, and a restraining order forbidding him from contacting me. Vanessa's case was far darker. Laura's investigator uncovered evidence tying her to 3 other elderly victims besides Harold Grant. She was now awaiting trial on multiple charges of elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. The so-called Dr. Hayes turned out to be Vanessa's cousin, a disgraced former physician who'd lost his license for insurance fraud. I took a sip of my coffee and checked my phone. Sharon had sent photos of her new apartment. After everything, she'd moved back east to be closer to me. "Life's too short to hold grudges," she'd said when she arrived 3 months ago with a moving truck. My phone rang. Helen Foster's name appeared on the screen. "Morning, Dot. Are you ready for our big day?" Today was the grand opening of the Evelyn Carter Community Garden, a project funded partly with the restitution money Andrew Carter was forced to repay. The irony wasn't lost on me. His theft had ended up financing something that would help seniors for years to come. "Almost ready," I told Helen. "Sharon's coming by at 9 to help set up." "I still can't believe you named it after yourself," she teased. I laughed. "Helen, I spent 70 years putting everyone else's name first. I figured it was time." After hanging up, I walked through my house, straightening things for the celebration. In the dining room, I paused at the family photos on the mantel, most of Andrew Carter at different ages. I'd taken them down after the trial, unable to see his smiling face without remembering his betrayal. But last week, I'd put up a new photo. Me at the community garden groundbreaking, surrounded by friends and neighbors, holding a shovel and grinning like a kid. I looked happy, genuinely happy, maybe for the first time since George Carter died. The doorbell rang at exactly 9. Sharon stood on my porch carrying a box of decorations, wearing the biggest smile I'd seen in years. "Ready to celebrate your victory?" she asked, hugging me. "It doesn't feel like a victory," I admitted. "It feels like survival." "Same thing sometimes," she said. We spent the morning setting up tables and hanging banners at the garden site. By noon, dozens of neighbors had gathered. Mayor Thompson gave a speech about the importance of community spaces. The local newspaper took photos. Children ran between the raised beds, imagining the vegetables they'd grow. As I watched, I thought about the woman I'd been 6 months earlier, trusting, passive, eager to please, always putting others first even when it cost me everything. That woman would have been horrified by what I'd done to Andrew Carter, would have felt guilty for sending her own son to court, for exposing his crimes, for shattering the illusion of a happy family. This woman felt proud. Mrs. Carter? A small voice interrupted my thoughts. I turned to see Emma Patterson, an 8-year-old from the neighborhood holding a tiny potted plant. "I brought you this," she said shyly. "My mom says it's for your garden." I knelt down. "What kind of plant is it?" "It's a sunflower. Mom says they're strong and always face the light." Always face the light. Tears pricked my eyes. "Thank you, Emma. It's perfect." As the afternoon wound down and neighbors drifted home, I found myself alone in the garden. I walked between the raised beds, imagining them bursting with vegetables and flowers, imagining the community that would grow here along with the plants. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. My heart raced for a moment, fearing Andrew Carter had violated his restraining order. But the message was from someone else. "Mrs. Carter, this is Detective Morrison from the County Prosecutor's Office. Melissa Grant accepted a plea deal today. 15 years, no parole for 12. Thought you'd want to know. Your courage helped us save other potential victims." I sat down on one of the benches, reading the message again. 15 years. Melissa would be in her 50s when she got out, too old to prey on seniors with the same efficiency. Other victims had been spared because I'd fought back. Sharon appeared beside me, noticing my expression. "Good news or bad news?" "Justice," I said, showing her the text. "How do you feel?" she asked. I considered the question, relieved, vindicated, but also something else, something I hadn't felt in years. "Proud," I said finally. "I feel proud of myself." "You should," Sharon said. "You saved your own life and probably others too, Granta's." We walked back to my house. I thought about the conversation I'd overheard in Andrew Carter's car 6 months ago, about being pathetic, about not being a problem much longer, about being warehoused in a nursing home while my son and his partner spent my money. That future had felt inevitable then. Final. But I'd learned something in the month since. As long as you're breathing, you get to write your own story. And mine was far from over. At 73 years old, I was finally living my life on my own terms. I had a community garden bearing my name, friends who valued me for who I was, a sister who'd crossed the country to be near me. Most importantly, I had myself, the woman I'd become through surviving the worst betrayal imaginable. The woman who'd faced down criminals and predators and won. The woman who'd learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to be a victim. That evening, as I locked my front door, I smiled at the thought of Andrew Carter somewhere rebuilding his life, hopefully learning that stealing from your mother carries consequences. I smiled at the thought of Melissa in prison, unable to harm any more vulnerable seniors. But mostly, I smiled because tomorrow I'd wake up in my own house, in my own bed, living my own life. And that was the greatest victory of all. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and feel free to share your own story in the comments. Your voice matters.